Okay, it's 5:30. Sam, do you think we should give it a few more minutes? You can see you. Yep. Okay. Good afternoon. This is Michael Rogers, interim city manager for the city of Charlottesville. I want to welcome you to our quarterly meeting with neighborhood leaders.
Good evening, everyone. We're happy to have you join us this evening. Just trying to make sure that staff members have been able to get back to their desk. We just wrapped a meeting, so I apologize for not being ready at 5:30.
Yeah, we were about to get started, Sam. So thank all of you for being here, and we have an agenda. I think Alex sent you an agenda in advance. We're going to have a number of updates and going to talk about the zoning rewrite update from James Freeze and the 2023 to 27 consolidated plan, talk about council priorities for access to affordable housing, workforce development, access to child care, homeowner rehabilitation, down payment assistance, and a number of things that the staff will share with you today.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I see enough boxes have popped up and faces I recognize, so I think we're ready to get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last meeting of 2022 for the Neighborhood Leaders Group. We appreciate you joining us, bringing whatever information you'd like to bring to us from your neighborhood perspective, and taking a moment to engage with city manager, his team, and letting us know things that we can do to support the work that you all are doing in your various neighborhoods. We have a full agenda, a couple of presentations that we wanted to make this evening, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rogers and allow him to make a welcome, and then we'll move right into it.
Sam, we must be out of sync. Am I on mute? Because I thought
we can't hear you for some reason. It doesn't look like you're muted, but I don't see.
That's why. Okay, let's see.
No, not yet.
I can hear Mr. Rogers fine.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, because I had done my introduction and I understand now you didn't hear me at first. So
oh, nope.
All right, very good. So I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. We have a number of items that we want to discuss with you. In previous meetings, we had asked you to submit questions in advance so that we could prepare for them. I think, Alex, we got 1 or 2 questions this time? Is that it?
Or 3.
3, okay. But the responses will be distributed as we have in the past. And we would encourage you to, if you have questions, to submit them in advance so that we can do the work and respond to you and not have to say we'll get back to you on a whole list of things. But Sam, why don't we dive right in? You have some updates.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with everyone that there is a community survey that is being distributed where the city manager will be able to receive direct feedback from the community at large. Did you want to go into anything specific on that?
Yeah, the survey is part of us soliciting input from the residents about a list of city services. This is not the first survey that's been done in Charlottesville. I think the last one was done in 2018 or something like that. And the information that we get back will be used for development of our strategic plan. It's a form of community input so that we can hear from you what's top of mind for the residents. And as we plan for our budget for the next fiscal year and beyond, we can take into consideration the items that you have identified as being a high priority in the strategic plan. Ashley has put the link to the survey in the chat. So we would encourage you to go on. If you did not receive one of the random surveys, now it's open now for any resident to go on and provide their opinion about the city and the city services and the priorities that you see. That's about it. So, Sam?
I have one quick question about the survey. Is it available in any other form besides online?
So, no, with this company, it is not. This is a part of a national survey platform, and they are collecting the information online. But they did send out paper surveys to people randomly selected in the city, and those were returned. But we are providing this opportunity for online response. Thank you.
And we did make sure for all of you all, if you're sharing with your neighbors and friends, our local library system is aware of this survey. They have checked to make sure that it is open and available on their computer, so it won't be blocked. And they would be more than happy to help if someone gets stuck. So I spoke to their director, and not only, of course, is their staff who lives, works, and plays here going to take it, but we double checked just to make sure that there was no block on the local library's computers, because we know not everyone has a smartphone or computer access at home, but they may visit the local library to grab a book or a movie, and while they're there, they certainly can take the survey.
And the survey is live now, is that?
Absolutely. So if anyone clicks on that link, it will go straight to the survey. It is live. You can take it right now, or tomorrow, or whenever you would like, and please share. It's also been posted on our social media. A press release went out, and I think the local news has covered it a couple times.
Okay. Any other questions about that? So thank you very much. Sam, you want to proceed?
Yep. We will move forward. I'm going to turn it over to James Freese, our Director of Neighborhood Development Services. He's going to give you an update on the zoning rewrite. And then Alex will follow with some updates on the consolidated plan for the next 5-year plan that the city is required to submit to HUD.
All right, good evening. I guess I got in just in time. I was having computer difficulties, so good evening, everybody. I have a really short presentation that I'm just going to throw up real quick. Did that pop up correctly?
We see it.
Excellent. Okay. So I know all of you are, for the most part, familiar with this project, but just by way of a little bit of background, this is the final, the zoning rewrite project is the final piece of the Seville Plans Together program, which began with the Affordable Housing Plan adopted by Council back in 2021, March of 2021, comprehensive plan adopted in November of 2021. And since this past spring, really, we've been working on the zoning rewrite. Our schedule as we go forward is that, so over this past summer, we worked on and released a diagnostic approach and information on the inclusionary zoning piece of this work. Received public comment on that, which was really a report looking at what zoning provisions, what rules and policies would we need to put into zoning in order to implement the comprehensive plan and the affordable housing plan. That work, we received public comment on that over the course of the summer, and then that work was discussed, and we received the go-ahead to move forward from Planning Commission and the City Council at the end of September. So we're now looking at our release of the draft zoning ordinance coming up over the course of the remainder of this winter and into the spring. And this graphic that I'm showing on the screen is available on the website. It's the most recent updated version of that, which ultimately is looking at reviewing of that draft ordinance, public review of that draft ordinance over the spring, and aiming for public hearings and ultimately adoption of the new zoning ordinance in the June timeframe. So late spring of 2023. Oops. So sorry, I just want to make sure the next slide popped up. Did it change slides for y'all? There we go. So where we are right now, we're looking ahead at the release of the draft zoning ordinance. It's going to come out in 3 parts. The first module, as we call them, is going to include the zoning districts themselves, descriptions of each districts and the rules that apply within those districts. So think about things like height, lot size, lot coverage, those types of rules. The land use table, so what uses are allowed in each district, and the zoning map itself. So a pretty substantial piece of work. It really represents most of the zoning ordinance. That draft language will come out in the week of January 30th to February 3rd. Or that is our target, I should say, as to when that will come out. The second module, which is the development standards. Again, think about things like landscaping, parking, signs, lighting, etc. That we're targeting the week of March 13th to March 17th. And then finally, the third module is the administration section that describes, most significantly, that describes the review processes associated with the zoning ordinance, so site plan review, special permits, and the like. Also describes how zoning violations are handled, things like that. When we're targeting the week of April 3rd to April 7th. I said this the other night to Planning Commission, and I'll say it again here tonight. These are our target dates. These are what we're aiming for. But I want to recognize that a zoning ordinance is a big project. It's a complex project, a lot of moving parts, and it is necessary for a great deal of review work, particularly by both my department and our city attorney's office. And so I want to make sure that that the time for that is available. So if it takes longer, it's going to take longer, but these are what we're targeting. And right now we remain on schedule for all of these dates. And so we continue to move forward. Now, I think of particular interest is going to be the engagement program that comes alongside the release of these different modules. And there's a lot of things that we're doing. We're building on what we've done in the past. So we're going to do a lot of the same things we've done in the past. You know, at the bottom of the list, we've always had the engagement via email and the website. We'll also continue to do things like pop-up meetings and attendance at various existing events. And of course, I will make myself available again to attend your meetings or other group meetings. But in particular, with this section coming forward, there's 2 really important things we're doing. One is we're going to have a couple different summary documents. We're going to have executive summaries tied to each one of these modules that comes out. That's going to try and take all of that zoning language and put it into kind of plain English, if you will, and make it understandable to what's being released. And then we're also going to have a large summary document that's going to go neighborhood by neighborhood to do comparisons between the existing zoning and the proposed zoning. So a substantial amount of work that's going to come alongside the zoning, with the goal of making all of this readily understandable as we move forward. Second, of course, meetings. We've always done the steering committee and planning commission. Both of those entities will be meeting in conjunction with the release of the modules. But we will also be doing community meetings. And in particular, we're aiming to do a set of community meetings. We're gonna divide the city up into essentially 4 quadrants and try and get out to each of one of those quadrants so that we're getting as close to the neighborhood level essentially as we can for these larger scale community meetings, so that we can get out into the community and hear from folks and talk about what's in the proposed zoning. So we also shared with the Planning Commission earlier this week just some of the early information that we have on the draft zoning ordinance, and that's basically a list of the zoning districts that are proposed at this point in time. Overall, we're moving from a zoning ordinance that today has 30 base zoning districts. That's not counting a pretty large number of overlay districts and then the planned unit development areas, which are essentially also their own little zoning districts each time one of those is approved. Right now, we have 30 base districts. The new ordinance, as we are laying it out right now, is going to bring that down to 17 base zoning districts. Right here, these are the residential districts. On the left hand, you have the land use designations from the comprehensive plan on the land use map there. We're proposing from those 3 different residential land use areas on the land use map in the comprehensive plan. We're proposing 5 residential districts. There's descriptions of these here. And of course, I will email out this same chart to all of you after the meeting today. So those are the residential districts as we have them laid out to date. These are the mixed use districts. Essentially, all of our commercial districts are going to move into one of these, I forget now, 7, 3, 6, 10 mixed use districts. And then, these again are translating the areas designated on the land use map in the comprehensive plan into a set of zoning districts.
James, it's not clear that your slides are advancing.
Sorry. What do you see right now, sir?
The draft zoning rollout schedule. Your second slide.
It's interesting. This is not. Okay, so. All right.
James, if you're trying to present your slideshow, don't present your slideshow. Close that window and just scroll through the basic PowerPoint, because that's what we're seeing.
Which slide, which screen
No.
are you seeing?
I can see your cursor, so just go to left and click on 3.
Got it.
Do it
Thank
like
you. Okay, so this is the slide on the engagement program. Here are the 5 residential zoning districts that I was talking about. And again, so since I'm sending this out anyway, this will be sent out through the email list for y'all to see. And then these are the 10 mixed use districts. And then finally, there's 2 remaining districts. One is a civic and one is a campus. And that lays out the civic basically is public uses and the campus is large scale private or related uses. So again, we're moving from our 30 existing zoning districts down to 17. So that's everything I have by way of an update. Sam, am I meant to be taking questions at this point or at the end of the meeting?
You can take them now.
All right, then I'm happy to do so.
Use the raise hand option if you would.
All right, Ethan Tate.
Hey, thank you. Curious if there are any kind of noteworthy differences between the future land use map designations that were approved, I guess about a year ago, and the 17 categories within the zoning. It seems like that's just a more granular kind of definition of some of those color coding things, but are there any significant changes that folks might notice in those?
When you say changes, are you referring to the boundaries of those?
Sure.
Sure.
Boundaries or yeah, just generally any significant changes between what was voted on in 2021 and what's being proposed now with them, either in terms of use or density or boundaries or things.
So, I mean, we're adhering pretty closely to the land use map as it was adopted by council. I think we are going to be looking closely, as we've said throughout this process, we're looking closely at those boundaries that were outlined that are shown on the land use map itself, and kind of double checking to make sure we still agree with those boundaries today, or how, whether changes are warranted based on new information or based on the zoning districts as we're now creating them. And so that process is beginning now. We're anticipating receiving a first draft map soon to start digging into and doing our assessments. The only thing I'd note is, for example, in that residential chart, the medium intensity district, which on the land use map adopted by council says up to 12. We're proposing dividing that into 2 districts. One of those is an up to 8 zoning district, up to 8 units, and the other one is the up to 12 zoning district. But otherwise, yeah, we're right there with what was proposed on the land use map.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Jonathan Rice had his hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if the city is planning any infrastructure improvements to go along with the increase in housing density, things like sidewalks, things of that nature. Is there a plan? Does the city have a plan to improve infrastructure to accommodate higher density?
I think the city is always actively working towards improving our infrastructure system. I think that's part of the conversation that's inherent in this plan, and in each of the in the conversation around the CIP and everything else that's going on right now. Understand that when we do transportation, when we make plans for transportation or any other form of infrastructure changes based on actual change on the ground and projections for change in terms of actual increased population and where demand is apparent. So I think we always need to understand when we're looking at the zoning ordinance, the zoning ordinance is not a plan for development. It is a body of rules regulating development, right? And that's an important distinction, right? What the property gets zoned for doesn't mean that that's what is then going to happen, because there's a whole lot of other factors that come into play before a development project happens. And with every development project that comes in, the scale of that project may then demand infrastructure changes in its own right, which then are done either by the city or in conjunction with other, or by the developer, depending on the nature of the project and what's required.
Ben Heller has his hand raised.
Actually, it's a similar question to John's. Where in those chapters that you're talking about, on the schedule of delivery, is there anything about the rules for exactions on developers with respect to infrastructure when they want to build? I know that's a piece of zoning in other places that I've been. Is that something that's in the zoning code, and at what point will that be discussed? Because I know that's a concern in our neighborhood. Like, well, somebody could build something. What's the responsibility of that? Where will the responsibility of that developer for contributions or an exaction on the developer? Where is that embedded in the zoning, if at all?
It comes as part of the site plan review.
So in that, so in the chapters you're talking about, that's basically, it's the third, it's sort of that third installment that you're talking about in the development standards, site planning as part of development standards.
Right, but it is when we're doing site plan review where the discussion comes into play as to whether a project, if there's additional stormwater capacity necessary that's driven by the project itself, or water system capacity or what have you, that comes up and is part of the conversation as part of site plan review.
Right, and but the standards for that, is there some verbiage in the zoning code that determines like the standards by which you do that, review?
I'm not sure that it shows up so much in zoning as it does in our standards and design manual and other documents. So there isn't a formula to it, if that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I expected a hard formula, but like
Right.
more like a set of standards. And if we're getting different forms of development than we've had in the past, would there need to be some update to the way you do that review? And at what point is that going to be considered?
Jack, would you give a very brief highlight on what the standards and design manual is?
Sure. So it depends what exactly you mean by infrastructure. James is correct in that it's site by site. When someone develops a site for stormwater, for example, we use the state's guidelines and how much discharge can be allowed, what that means in regards to on-site treatment for quality and quantity. When it comes to, I think maybe the core of the message here, which is the transportation aspect, there's only so much that can be enforced on a developer when they develop a property. A lot of times it has to do with improving the frontage, which the zoning and comprehensive plans can inform, because if we describe what the intent for a corridor is, again, it's site by site and project by project. As James said, planned unit developments have their own regulations, and I'm not sure if that's staying, but we look at that specifically from automobile transportation. It's usually focused on the standard traffic impact study, which more density will broaden the scope of where you do that study and how that development will impact those intersections, both from pedestrian accessibility at those intersections, but primarily traffic function through that intersection. And then typically outside of the scope of the development, there's not requirements that we put on the developer from expanding the sidewalk networks, but between the CIP, transportation planning, and the comprehensive plan, and then the actualities on the ground when a development comes in, those all should hopefully work in tandem to advise what projects we select to fund or seek grants from VDOT to make improvements for the multimodal network to generally improve things with an eye on how things are changing. Hopefully that answers the question somewhat.
Thank you, Jack. All right, Mr. Abrahamson.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the update, James. My question is about the scope of the conversation for some of the finer grain elements, like the development standards that, with all the discussion about the zoning designations, took up a lot of oxygen. Things like parking minimums and making, if there's efforts to minimize parking minimums, is there space to still solicit feedback on that, or is it only feedback going to be received once you present an option?
So actually there was some conversation about those issues, particularly parking minimums, actually came up a fair bit over the course of the summer with the diagnostic report. And those things were discussed and called out during the comprehensive plan. I think you're right. They weren't necessarily the most prominent aspects of the conversation, but they were still out there. At this point, we are in the mode of drafting, and then there will be an opportunity for public review on what comes out with each one of these draft sections, and we'll take feedback. The drafts that are released on that schedule that I showed earlier are not going to be the final draft that is then presented to council. We're going to receive feedback on those drafts, and then we will make changes to those drafts based on the feedback, and then we will present a final draft zoning ordinance back to the Planning Commission and City Council for them to consider for adoption.
Thank you. So people had specific items they want to get feedback on, for example, parking minimums, April would be a good time to provide the feedback and then look for the follow-up with the larger team.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Okay. All right, I don't see any other hands, so we will move on. Alex is going to go over our 5-year consolidated plan that is being prepared for submission.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you again. We just want to change a little bit how we do the consolidated plan because it's not an exclusive city project. It's a consortium project. In other words, there are 5 other local jurisdictions that are part of this consortium under the umbrella of Thomas Jefferson PDC. I have our colleague from Thomas Jefferson PDC is here, Laura Jean. I'm going to defer to her in a few minutes. In any case, the city is an entitlement community, which means the city gets its community development block grant directly from U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the city gets also a portion of the Home Investment Partnership Act money that comes through Thomas Jefferson PDC. The city gets an equal share, just like every other member jurisdiction that is part of that consortium. And part of the requirements to get that money every year is that each locality or entitlement community within United States has to prepare what is called a multi-year, 3 or 5 year housing and community development plan. And that plan has to be approved by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the money, every penny you spend in terms of your allocation every year has to be consistent with that plan. The city has a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan is scheduled to expire next year, June 30th, I believe, 2023. And with that, the city is expected to complete another 5-year plan. In other words, update the existing plan or prepare a new plan to be submitted to her 45 days before July 1st. So in other words, the city council has to act on this plan by March or sometime in ending of March or sometime in April. And then we'll be ready to dispatch that to U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in early May so that they will get it, review it, provide comment. If we have to make the, revisions, we complete the revisions before the fiscal year begins on July 1st, 2023. So we are in the process of doing the update of our new plan, which will be from 2023 to 2027. And we wanted to bring it to the attention of the group, you know, and to let you guys know that sometime next month, you'll be hearing from Laura Jean. And I'm going to defer to her in a few minutes. But I wanted to also point out that in September of this year, the City Council reaffirmed the existing priorities. So in addition to council priorities, whatever feedback we get from the public, as we move on with this plan, we're going to integrate that into the priorities that are already approved by the City Council. And those 5 priorities are listed in the agenda. So with that, I'm going to defer to Laura Jean because you'll be getting a survey from her, and we want you to get informed that this is coming. So when you get it, you don't think it's some kind of spam email. So you can discuss it with your constituents and go to their website, Thomas Jefferson PDC. There will be instruction when you get the survey, complete it and send it back to them as instructed. So with that, I will turn it over to Laura Jean. Then thereafter, we'll be able to answer some of the questions you may have. Laura Jean.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So can I get a thumbs up for everybody who knows what the PDC is, TJPDC? Okay, a few people. And I don't know with folks with their cameras off if you know or not, but so it's actually a regional government. So it is a consortium of Charlottesville, Albemarle, Louisa, Fluvanna, Greene, and Nelson all together to be able to address things like transportation, housing, kind of those large scale things where what happens in one place impacts the other place. So we're trying to coordinate everything together. Consolidated plan is probably very confusing because it's easy to mix up with the comprehensive plan, very different thing. This is just about affordable housing and community development, and primarily looking at housing in particular. And it's a lot of funds, mostly from HUD. And so that's what we're planning what to do with. I will let you guys know at the PDC right now, we're in the middle of a process of one-on-one or small group consultations. So if you or some folks in your neighborhood group have, you know, strong thoughts or just have thoughts to add and insights to add about how things are going with housing in our community, and that includes especially thinking about if you're aware of, you know, homelessness and how people are being impacted, people with disabilities, people who are elderly, and especially how those folks are being impacted in their access to housing is a big part of what we're looking at, but we're interested in whatever folks have to share. So a few of y'all will probably be receiving emails about that first, but we don't have every single group on our list. So if you're really interested, reach out to me. I'll leave my email address in the chat for you. And then like Alex said, in January, we're going to be sending out a survey, and that's a way for you can blast that out to everybody in your group, in your neighborhood, and say, hey, please complete this. It's a chance for every individual. It's gonna be, I think it's something like 20 questions. It's really trying to drill down. It's looking at discrimination. It's looking at incomes and how they do or don't line up with housing costs. All sorts of details that people can give their input about in January as well. And then, like Alex said, everything that we're collecting from people is going to get filtered into how we make decisions about how we spend these funds from HUD. So that's super important. I think those are the main things. Like I said, I'll drop my email in the chat, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Input.
And take your question now if you have any question.
Yeah, if you have questions now too, please go for it. Yeah, Jonathan. Hi, neighbor.
So when are you available to meet with neighborhood associations?
Yeah, if you email me, I'm basically scheduling it individually.
But I mean, is that starting like right after the holidays, I guess, at this point?
Oh no, we've already started. I think we're trying to wrap that up actually probably by mid-January if we can. I'm sure we'll have a few lingering that we'll do at the end of January, but yeah, we're in the middle of that process now. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'll be in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Laura Jean.
Thanks, everybody.
Alex, did you have anything else?
No, I'm done with that topic.
All right. I think you had 2023 program.
Yes, folks, as a couple of emails you received noted, this is our last meeting of the year, and our next meeting is going to be on March 16, and there are 4 quarters every year. So we just want to solicit just to get ideas, you know, what kind of ideas you folks have for the meetings, quarterly meetings for 2023, you know. whether you have interest in terms of scheduling maybe 1 or 2 city departments to provide some kind of update on their operations, or you like to do something else. I just don't wanna have us, coming back and saying every quarter, this is what's gonna happen. Now, from time to time, there will be some city department that would like to provide feedback or provide some kind of announcement or discuss certain issues, operations or program. We work that into the agenda, but I want to give you folks opportunity, to make some kind of suggestions. If there are ways we can improve the meetings, this is a good opportunity so that we can go through it and then find the necessary resources and then schedule them accordingly.
So we'll just ask right now, is there, okay, Ethan?
Yeah, I first, I guess I want to thank Mr. Sanders and Mr. Freeze and everybody else at the city who's been so involved in the safe routes to school improvements over the last summer. There was a lot to be done, and I think a lot did get done with a skeleton crew, and I really appreciate that. And there's a lot more left to be done, but I think just acknowledging everything that happened on a really short timeline is impressive. I think that was, so I live in the Martha Jefferson neighborhood, a couple doors down from Burnley Moran Elementary School. A lot of the other neighborhoods have their own schools and their own newfound walkers in them. And that was something that was really of interest in our neighborhood. So maybe whatever the last meeting is before the start of school, to kind of have a focus on that and walkability generally. I think that I felt well communicated by the city, by the schools. I was pleasantly surprised at the level of communication there, but I think as new parents send their kids to school and get involved in that again, I think as you all caught your breath and look at what might be coming next, that might be a really helpful spot to think about. What are the last projects before school starts that are really urgent? What went well, what didn't go well? And I think there would be an audience, at least within our neighborhood, for that kind of a thing that I'd be happy to pass on.
Great. Okay, I like that idea as well. I think we can definitely make sure that we do that. We definitely plan to do more safe routes work, because yes, we recognize that there's a lot more that still needs to be done. Okay. Audrey Dannenberg.
Hi, 2 things that you might want to bring to all the neighborhoods' attention is the rollout of the 5-cent plastic bag tax and how the city is going to be making that happen. I'm with the Sierra Club, and if I can put a plug in here, we're working on collecting reusable bags so that we can distribute them to the neighborhoods or to areas that, and not just neighborhoods, but at grocery stores and stuff that the city will not be covering. So that would be one thing to discuss, so all the neighborhoods are aware of what's going on. The second thing is if updates on the Relief Charlottesville program, which is a really cool program that I believe the city's involved with for planting trees where there aren't any. And I think it'd be great if neighborhoods knew more about that.
Great.
Thank you.
With and in regards to the plastic bag tax, we can give a brief update on that at this moment, because it goes live January 1. And that will be in the city, plastic bags for grocery stores and pharmacies and very, very tiny retailers, of those will be 5 cents per bag. The city decided to take on the initiative to ensure that all SNAP and WIC eligible households will be provided a set of bags to mitigate the impact of that tax being levied. So our Department of Social Services will be distributing those directly to their caseload, so that we ensure that it's available to the folks who are in that particular population. And we've been in touch with the Sierra Club, so we definitely love hearing that y'all are working on collecting bags, because we're not going to know exactly who is in need of one and wanting one, and we don't know how many, of course, to then prepare for. But ideally, council is interested in seeing what does the tax generate, and then the funds will first be used to continue to supply bags to those that need it, before we then consider looking at additional program opportunities for anti-litter campaigns, educational efforts that'll help to help us clean up our environment and to support the climate action work that we also have as a priority. But we won't know really how the collections go probably until about April, May is what I've been told. We'll get our first indication of what the first quarter generated, and then we base everything from there. And we've been working in lockstep with the county so that as folks leave the city, go in the county, they're going to experience the same things. So ideally, the goal is to try to make it as simple as we possibly can for choosing to go this route to eliminate the use of plastic bags. And there will definitely be more information to come. As I said, shifting to the climate aspect of it, our climate team will be taking over the initiative. Alex has been working on the coordination of getting the bags so that the DSS team will have it available.
If I can add to that, if you don't mind, if for those on neighborhood associations, I'm blanking, the Renew Charlottesville place on not Allied Street. It's next to Allied Street. It's Renew Charlottesville. They have a lot of what's it near? It's near what's McIntyre Plaza is what it's called. They have a box to collect reusable bags that we're picking up from there. And the other drop off is Dogwood Refillery out on 29. So if any neighborhood wants to collect them, those are the two drop off spots that we're collecting and then redistributing. Okay, we meaning Sierra Club. But we are working in conjunction with the city. Thank you.
So Alex, we should get an advisory out from the city telling people about those drop-off locations. See if we can't drive more activity for y'all to pick up. That'd be great. Anyone else with the? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're now in the roundtable portion. So Ms. Danberg, do you want to just go ahead and give your neighborhoods update?
Sorry, updates from us. We've been in discussion with UVA on a pretty regular basis and had a site tour for the construction that's going on Ivy Road. And there is some concern because, not to get anyone in trouble, but they're concerned about the intersection of Ivy and Emmett, that UVA was not sure, if I'm quoting them correctly, if the traffic mess that's going to occur there is actually being addressed by the city. So that's just a concern that I'm raising. The UVA gives us updates about once a month on how things are progressing, and they're pretty much on schedule with things being built. Data science buildings going in, the conference center is going in, wiring is going underground. So you all probably have seen the progress, but there is certainly a lot of concern about the Ivy and Emmett intersection and what's going to happen to that traffic wise. It is not in their hands. I believe it is in the city's hands. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's show hands and we'll go through the round of neighborhood reports. Jonathan Rice.
Yeah, hi. There's a lot of concern in the Little High neighborhood about the intersection of 10th and Little High. It's been closed off for more than 2.5 years. It's gone well beyond any projected timeline, and we're just wondering, back in the summer we thought it was going to open within a week or two, and it's here we are at the end of the year. Is there any projected time in which traffic can actually go into that intersection, 10th and Little High?
I made a note. We'll follow up and get back to you directly on an answer for there because I'm not aware of what's
Okay.
up on that.
Okay, another concern is down at Mead Park. It's not a problem so much this time of year, but there was a press release from the city about dangerous levels of E. coli, especially in the stream that flows through Mead Park. And the sign that was put up is the most poorly designed sign in the history of signage. It's literally about the size of a license plate, not quite. And every time I was down at Mead Park in the summer, kids would be down in the water playing. And the city's own press release said people should not go in the water. Parents would go down there, they wouldn't see it. I wrote to various people in the city back in late June and asked, pointed this out, so this is a problem, can we get better signage? If the water is basically toxic, we need to really put in adequate signage that would warn people to not go in the water, especially children. The sign that is up there shows somebody swimming with a circle and slash through it, which looks like the sign is about don't swim in the creek. I'm just wondering how hard it is to get an adequate sign to really convey the information. That's fine.
We'll take a look at that. That's not hard. That's just a matter of what we need to make sure that we're communicating the right message. So I definitely will take a look into that one.
You have a little grace period this time of year, but
Right.
Hopefully no one's got any interest in going down the creek now.
Sure.
What was the creek again?
Pardon me?
What was the creek?
I forget if it's called, it's the one that goes through Meadow Creek. I'm sorry, Mead Park.
Mead
It'll be the
Creek.
meat part.
Mead Creek, this is Mead Creek. Yeah.
Yeah, they log where the signs are. We can definitely follow up on that one. Take a
Yeah,
look at it.
it's where there's a sort of there's a part where the Wednesday City Market is and the spray park and all that, and then you walk across a little bridge to the playground area, and it's on that bridge.
Yeah. I know where it's at.
Okay,
We'll take a look.
thank you.
Ms. Williams?
I can answer a couple of the questions that are problems a bit for two of you. The intersection at Emmett and Ivy and University is under the city's streetscape plan. So you may want to take a look at that, of what they're planning to do with the state and federal funds. As far as the contaminated creek, we at the Ravenna River, Ravenna Conservation Alliance, they call it now, monitor the bacterial count monthly. And it is reported to the DEQ, and I don't know who's responsible for getting it to the city, if the city and counties can put the signs up. But we're very aware that several of these creeks are highly contaminated. Shanks Creek, that comes right down beside the fire station, beside the bypass, is dreadfully contaminated, and is running through the new botanical garden as such. So, and we see kids playing in it all the time, and I'm constantly telling them to go home and wash their hands. Don't let the kids play in it. But it is a big problem, Jonathan. And I think I'll talk to the folks at RCA and see if they can come up with some signage on the ones that are, some of them are temporarily contaminated because of weather and runoff, but some of them are just, there's several of them that just are continuous. The Moores Creek is just famous. So it's something that we're monitoring But until we can get the storm runoff and the other things that dump into these creeks, it's a difficult thing. So just to let you know who you may want to talk to, if you want to talk to the folks down at the Ravenna Conservation Society, and they're down on River Road, and very nice people. Okay, Nina's not here, so I'm being Nina tonight for the JPA Neighborhood Association. And as we have an ongoing protest with a high rise that's been given permission to be built on JPA. So that's ongoing. The rezoning that's coming up, I didn't attend the meeting 2 nights ago. I don't know where that's going, but that's going to affect all of us. So we have to really look at the rezoning through all the neighborhoods. And I talked to Taylor Yarrow about the new precinct drawings. All of us are getting our voting precincts in the city redrawn because of the census and the numbers that we need to have in each precinct. So they're going to present it to the council, city council, I think in January, either the 1st or 3rd meeting. And it's going to result in some change of locations as well as where you yourself may be voting. They're tweaking it because they did draw a line through some streets and people's houses. So they're just going to tweak the lines, but I think it's going to be a done deal. So that's all I know at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Willow Gale.
Hey, thank you. I'm here in place of Carmelita tonight. So we're here from the Fifeville neighborhood. And I just wanted to let you know that last month we had a very successful potluck. We worked with the city and with Launch Consulting to organize information from city departments, city reps, a whole variety of nonprofit groups. The focus was on anti-displacement in our neighborhood and also sharing information about programs that are currently available for residents like tax relief and LEAP and organizations and programs like that. It was very, it was very well received and very, very successful. One of the extra perks was that we hosted it at the Islamic Society of Central Virginia. So we were there at the mosque, and I was hurt and also pleased just to hear how many people said, I didn't even know we had a mosque in Charlottesville. So that was just an extra perk. But the whole evening was really very nice, and we appreciated everyone who was willing to come out and share information. Our latest project, and we're just at the very beginning stages, is looking for creative solutions to bring fresh food to the neighborhood and to the Cherry Avenue corridor. When we worked on the Cherry Avenue small area plan, it came up time and time again that folks wanted a grocery store they could walk to, something beyond just a convenience store at the gas station on the corner. So we're hoping to find some creative solutions, and that's at the very early stages, but it's exciting to get started on that too. So thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ethan, I saw your message about the rumor of a broken sewer line. I'm definitely following up on that. I'm typing an email as we speak so that we can, of course, get over there and check that out and just at least dispel that for one. But if it is that case, then we should definitely be working to fix that.
Good, Hella.
Did you have anything else, Ethan? I see. Yeah, I'm happy to just do a quick update from Martha Jefferson. We had our semi-annual winter solstice neighborhood gathering this past weekend, and I had great weather for it, and appreciated seeing folks come out and start to reconnect. Certainly interest in a lot of city level decisions and planning things. So there is, I think, a varied perspective within our neighborhood on a lot of these things, whether it's the climate plan or parking minimums or things like that. So that to whatever extent y'all are able to do that outreach, we welcome any kind of conversations here. One of the projects that I think is maybe not divisive, but of interest to a lot of folks is the 0 East High Street plan down there right by the river, kind of behind Jack and Jill, and in that open field close to the Ravenna Trail. I think there is an acknowledgement from some folks, at least, that Charlottesville needs more housing, and that is a large undeveloped lot, and that's a space that could happen. That could really revitalize East High Street, and there's a lot of good things to be said there. I think there's also, as I'm sure you've all heard, a lot of concerns about floodplain and not just as folks are starting to understand that there will be a lot of fill going in there. It's not just building on the existing grade, but in elevating that floodplain with fill, what does that mean for the Mead Creeks and the other areas that might get backed up with that channel being created there? So I understand there's a lawsuit that has kind of stalled things out on that front, and I'm certainly not advocating one way or another as a representative of the neighborhood on that, but I think if there's any updates that are relevant to that particular development, there's a lot of folks here who use the trail, access it through that area, and are curious about it. I will leave it there. I think there's a lot of potential good that can come out of it, but there's, I think, also some justifiable concerns.
Appreciate that. I'm gonna say, James, is there anything that you feel comfortable saying at this point? What I know that we can say from the city perspective in regards to that, well, there he is. Do you want to say something?
Actually, but I don't know that I have anything to add at this point in time. I think it's pretty much everything that's been covered in the news is kind of hitting all the high points at this point. The project went through its initial review. A number of challenges were pointed out, and the developers resubmitted. And yeah, that's where it is.
We can just say, stay tuned on that one. There's a lot more to that. We have a series of hoops, as many developers in this community talk about, so it won't be an easy task for anyone. So just know that there's many more opportunities ahead to really take a closer look at that, and for public to engage as well.
Great, thank you.
Ben Heller.
Hi, Ben Heller from Meadowbrook Hills Rugby. We also had sort of our annual get together for the neighborhood association. We got our street closed off, and that was really easy to do, which we appreciate. A question that came up from a number of people that they wanted me to pass on was just about the status of the Barracks Road Emmett intersection project. Where is that? What's the timing on that? I think some people had some concerns about the path that's envisioned in that plan, and they were wondering, is that plan fully baked, and also what's the timing on that? And in relation to that, some other people had some concerns that when that happens, that traffic would be diverted to sort of Rugby Road, and particularly the lower part of Rugby Road, where it's in pretty bad shape and seems like hasn't been repaved for a long time, was repaved, even some things that were torn up more recently have since been repaved, and that's sort of in bad condition. And if there's a lot of traffic diverted to that, some concerns about how that's going to go. So whether there's any possibility of, in conjunction with that intersection plan, doing something about the lower part of Rugby Road.
Jack, is there any update on the barracks image? I would say on the many improvements to Rugby would be something that's probably a little more far off.
So Barracks Rugby does go up Rugby a fair ways, at least to that first intersection. That is one of our projects that is ahead of schedule at this point, but it is not slated to go to construction until January of 24. So we're in the right-of-way phase now, and we anticipate probably finishing that before we get to the point where we can expend money for construction. That does go up Rugby with the shared use path and the retaining wall and associated drainage with doing that project. Was there a specific question about the trail that I missed? I apologize.
No, people were just, some people were kind of concerned about how much of the, I guess what you'd call like the little hill on the side was going to be pared away and how many trees would be lost. But just more as a general question about whether that part of the plan was fully baked or whether there was still anything to be determined with respect to that part of the plan.
No, so that's 100% designed at this point.
Okay.
In the phase of acquisition of the right of way and scheduled for construction in 24. Yeah.
Okay.
And there will be trees removed. The hillside will be removed to some extent, and there'll be a retaining wall to support that excavation. So there will be some trees lost there. We tried to limit that as much as possible, hence the retaining wall, as opposed to just grading, a slope back into there.
Okay, thanks.
Right, Mr. Abramson.
Thank you. Yeah, just like everybody else, we're having a party. We had our winter gathering last night, had a good turnout, some good conversations, and thankfully we're putting forward some ideas for the next year ahead, which members of the city staff they would really love to get in contact with, what they wanted to learn more about. Our next meeting is in February. We're inviting some of the city parks and trails group to speak to help inform the neighborhood about some of the efforts along Moores Creek. Some people are excited about that. There's still some confusion about the electrical work that was occurring along Stribling, just the scope of that, since most people impacted didn't get those mailings. I don't know if the city or Dominion could rectify that. If it's a non-issue, it's a non-issue, but some people were still asking questions. Related to that, one of the questions is of course, how does the city and Dominion handle electrical pole placements in the city right of way? Understood that they're not going to just plunk it in somebody's private property without asking, but it was clear about how does that conversation occur between Dominion and the city? They just have carte blanche. Can it be integrated into our infrastructure planning?
Yes and yes. It's their poles. They move them around. Jack, did you want to add anything specific? I've talked to Brennan about it, our traffic engineer, and he's connecting with Dominion specifically because of some of the feedback that we heard, because we actually hadn't been notified as much as we would like to have been as well.
Yes, so it's complicated how all this is regulated through the franchise agreement, which is I think like a 120-year-old document agreement we have with them. At any rate, they have more flexibility without having us review things if they're doing maintenance or replacement in kind. And so sometimes the definition of in-kind replacement can get stretched a little bit. And so we do require that we review plans from Dominion when they locate new poles or do anything other than in-kind replacement. We're having ongoing conversation with them to improve this process. We actually require that they engineer the plans and have an engineer seal the plan if they're going to do anything that impacts the right of way, either clearances for hanging a strand over the roadway or putting a pole in the right of way so that we can make sure it doesn't conflict with pedestrian clearances or ADA ramps and things like that. I'm not aware of what happened there. I assume that they replace things in kind or something like that. But again, we're working on improving that relationship and making sure that we can at least communicate with the public when that's going to happen.
And I'll add that I did elevate it to a public affairs matter and spoke with their representative for the region. And with engaging him, we have now a secondary conversation with our traffic engineer to actually work with their project manager to see if we can actually help them shift poles to better locations within the right of way so that they don't interfere with future ADA improvements that we're also striving to be able to achieve as we do some more sidewalk projects around the city.
Thank you very much for doing that. It sounds like so well underway. The only other comment that we didn't have an update on, well, of course, 250 or the sidewalks, but I think you responded to that in a planning commission meeting a couple weeks ago. Where is, or what is the timeline for the central water line now? Is that this year or is that a couple years out?
No, it's a couple years out. There's still more details that'll be forthcoming, and I would imagine that at this moment, council will be requiring that Ravenna come before them for a work session so that the public can hear as we get closer to that date. And we'll continue to monitor that because it is going to be such a significant project coming through the city that we'll be able to feed you that, and probably could get Bill or one of his team members to come to one of our meetings and give you a chance to actually speak to him about that as well.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all for me.
All right. Anyone else? We are ahead of schedule and I love it. All right, so we will just say, as always, we thank you for being willing to give of your time. We thank you for your service to your neighborhoods. It is much appreciated when we can have great relationships with those folks that are able to speak for what is going on in the neighborhood and that we then can be responsive. We definitely have appreciated the opportunity as we've tried to shift this meeting a little bit to make sure that they feel a little more productive for everyone. We do welcome your ideas. So as you go back and start thinking about other topics that you would love to hear from, Alex is waiting, pen in hand, ready to take that note and work that out for you to get somebody else scheduled to come and share more information with you. And we're going to continue to try to look for some more creative topics that kind of give us a chance to interact with one another as well. And as we move through this holiday season, we say, be safe. Enjoy your family, take time for yourself. I am leaving tomorrow to begin taking time for myself, and we will see you in the new year.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Holiday season.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Thank you all.
Thanks very much. See you next year.
All righty.
Thank you.
Have a good vacation.
Thanks.